Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today you might be asking why I'm wearing a detective coat indoors, and the reason why is because today I'm going to review the game Call of Cthulhu. Call of Cthulhu is a game made by Cyanide Studio and released by Focus Home Entertainment. It's based on both the Lovecraft story and the 80s tabletop game that share the same name. The game itself is part character-driven RPG and part survival horror, and it's about Edward Pierce, a World War I veteran living in 1924 as a private eye. Right off the bat, Edward Pierce suffers from a few things. After being a combat veteran, he suffers from PTSD, and in addition, he suffers from alcoholism. That poses a lot of issues because at the time of 1924, one, PTSD wasn't very well understood at all, and two, alcoholism was shunned because, of course, it was in the middle of the Prohibition era. This makes his situation uniquely interesting, and it plays with his mental state throughout the game. You begin in his office, where he receives an interesting case. He's there to investigate the death of Sarah Hawkins, a famous painter who lived on this remote island of Darkwater off the coast of Boston. Now, this is a fictional Lovecraftian island, but it does definitely carry this very distinct Lovecraftian atmosphere that ties in with a dark New England landscape. Now, I know this very well. I'm a native New Englander, and although Darkwater is extremely stylized and has sort of a green tint throughout the entire game, it felt very familiar, which I personally appreciated. Now, as I mentioned, one of the most successful parts of the game is its atmosphere. You come onto Darkwater and you get this immediate feeling of dread and a little bit of sickliness. You know immediately that something's wrong on the island. Although one small critique of this is that there isn't much variety to the locations. Now, very much in line with the fact that this is a character-based RPG, your decisions matter. You're given the ability to drink or not drink, or take in forbidden knowledge, or choose not to, and that plays in with something they call a sanity meter. Very much in the Lovecraftian way, your sanity can stay strong or waver throughout the game. In the game, it's very easy for it to waver. Now, I specifically went through and did a sanity walkthrough where I specifically didn't take a lot of the forbidden knowledge and I chose not to drink throughout the whole thing. At first, I thought I was setting myself for a lot of disadvantage and possibly locking myself out of most of the endings in the game. Again, because it's character-driven RPG where the choices matter, you get a variety of different endings. But the thing that really helped me was that even in that sanity run, the whole time I was concerned, I thought that I had basically screwed myself over. But then in the end, I was really pleasantly surprised to find that I got 3 out of the 4 endings without particularly trying. Now, that was really reassuring for me because a lot of the time, if I don't plan to get a certain ending, I certainly won't get it. And this time, I really just threw it to the wind, played as blind as I possibly could, and I found that I felt rewarded because the decisions that I made had an impact on Edward and the world. In that way, it's really exciting to watch your choices play out. For example, I didn't know whether or not I would want to repeat the game, but it does have replay value. If you were to partake in the forbidden knowledge and drink, for instance, your experiences start to differ. Your sanity wavers and it affects the rest of the game. In a rare instance, I'm actually kind of excited to be able to pick the game back up again after a little bit of time, completely throw my sanity to the wind, welcome all the forbidden knowledge, and then just see what happens. I find that to be very exciting to watch the events play out based on your choices. The entire campaign is between 10 and 15 hours, which I find to be really refreshing. In this day and age, where a lot of the open world sandbox games are 100 plus hours long, it's actually really nice to pick up a game where you know that you will have a short amount of time to just be immersed in it. Lately, those are the types of games that I have been gravitating toward, and I have no regrets going ahead and getting Call of Cthulhu for this reason. It might be a short game, but it does immerse you, and it holds you there. It's the type of game where you find that when you're not playing it, you'll start to think about it, which I think is one of its biggest successes as well. The voice acting is rather excellent and believable from the characters. Even though we're dealing with really extreme situations, they take it well. Edward, for instance, because he suffers from PTSD, you'll notice that he is susceptible to certain phobias, such as claustrophobia. He can't be in tight spaces for too long. The voice actor is able to express that incredibly well, and you genuinely feel empathy for him when he's stuck in these tight places and he can't get out. On the same vein, as much as you care about Edward, and this is a character-based RPG where you interact with a whole slew of different characters, I didn't find a lot of the NPCs to be particularly memorable. A lot of the times I forgot, for instance, Sarah Hawkins' name, and the whole thing revolves around the events that happened in her life. So I think that that is a small downfall of it. I wish that you had more side quests that deal with the characters to allow you to get to know them better. Now I'm going to go on to some of the things that I didn't find to be as successful with the game. Number one is animation. Because the game is not a AAA title in particular, a lot of the animation is jagged and sometimes it just pulls you right out of the atmosphere that they worked so hard to build successfully. Another big thing that I found is that the game struggled to fit a set genre. It's both RPG and survival horror, but in very different sections of the game. You'll get several chapters that are just Edward Pierce making certain decisions, and I found that to be very refreshing. I really loved the mystery part of the game where you're finding clues, you're trying to solve puzzles, and just get to the next point and figure out more information. Then there will be levels with stealth and survival horror, which are fine, and it does tie in pretty well with the plot of the game, but I found that between chapter and chapter, they can be completely different gameplay styles, and that can be a little bit disjointed. For instance, this might even be a personal bias. I don't love survival horror that much. I never really like in a game to feel helpless, although that's the entire point of survival horror. That just might be my personal opinion that will affect my ability to make a completely unbiased review of the entire game. But I also found that in the survival horror aspect, some of it requires stealth. Now I found that in some levels this was really successful. You could be able to stealthily go from room to room without being detected, and you get a sense of satisfaction when you get through the whole thing and you know that you've gotten to safety. Now from here on in, there's going to be some very light spoilers. In the middle of the game, you unleash a creature called the Dimensional Shambler, who is absolutely horrifying in every way, and there are some levels where you have to stealthily get through. However, I found that stealth was just not effective, which is a slight downfall because the previous levels in the game that were survival horror taught you to use stealth. Instead, I found it to be much more effective to just run to exactly where you need to go instead of attempting to be hidden in any sense. Because when you try to be hidden and it's unsuccessful over and over again, you just find that you don't even want to bother and you just start running through. Now, when I was almost finished with the game, I watched an excellent review on it from Rock Paper Shotgun, and I'm going to reiterate one of the points that they made. I'm going to recommend that review for you all as well, and I'll link it down below. But one of the points that Noah, the reviewer, made was she said that the pacing changes in the game from the start to the finish. In the start, you're very much slowly going through the island, talking to all the NPCs that you can, and unraveling as much information as you possibly can as well. To me, that was the best part of the game. And then in the second half, there's a lot less of that, a lot more action though. About 3/4 through the game, there aren't really much of the survival horror aspects left. Once that was over and done with, I personally became a lot more invested in the game. I felt refreshed in knowing that I'm not running from something anymore, and instead I'm making these decisions that will affect the outcome of Edward and the entire island. Also, there are certain occurrences that happen that have no explanation. This will be another light spoiler, although I won't reveal any names. There are a couple characters throughout the game that either you personally kill or get killed right in front of you, and then the next moment they're alive again. Now that plays very well into the whole dynamic of Edward slowly letting his sanity unravel. There was one character in particular that did get killed, but he was essential for one of the endings, and they gave a whole explanation on why he got killed, and then I was like, why is he in this ending? He's dead. So I'm wondering whether that is a sanity issue or a simple plot hole. Despite all of that though, I feel that this is an excellent game that I would be happy to recommend to my viewer base. I know that you guys are here a lot of the time for my Dark Souls stuff, my Bloodborne stuff, and certain other games that I play. With that in mind, if you guys are interested in similar types of games, I highly recommend you playing this. And note that in any one of my reviews, even if I particularly love a game, I'm going to say what I loved about it and what I found unsuccessful. I think that that really is the only way to create a fair review. That being said, one of my favorite things about it was I streamed this entire game on Twitch. Now, and when I had a new audience member come in, the first question that they asked was, "Oh, what's this game? This looks so interesting." And I loved that. That being a first impression of people that didn't even know that this game exists gives me hope and reinforces the fact that this is a game that I would absolutely recommend. All in all, Call of Cthulhu is an interesting and spine-tingling story that immerses you into the fictional Lovecraftian New England. Although the setting sometimes has kind of a limited variety, you definitely feel immersed in it. You feel that the things around you are tangible. Even the reality around you can almost be touched at times. It's very fascinating, and I found that to be very successful. Speaking of things they did well, I think that this is a great adaptation to any Lovecraftian story. It is definitely based on its namesake Call of Cthulhu, but it feels like other Lovecraftian stories were woven into it. I find that to be interesting because it's not just the same old, same old. There are certain situations where I momentarily forgot that this was based on a Lovecraft story altogether, and I would wonder, what really is causing these horrible things to happen in Darkwater? Before having to remind myself, oh yeah, it's Cthulhu. I find that you care about what happens in the narrative and what happens to Edward, and you can customly craft the experience based on some of the things you want. If you want to learn all of the forbidden knowledge, but also watch Edward's sanity unravel, you absolutely can. Or if you want to remain a sane detective who wants to uncover the truth of the situation, you can as well. The destiny of these characters are up to you. It's easy to get invested in his journey. In the end, it's a short but immersive story that's worth exploring. Have you guys played Call of Cthulhu yet? If you have, let me know how you felt in the comments below. I'm definitely interested in knowing what you think. Did you even hear of it before this? I feel like the title kind of went under the radar, which is a real shame because it's a game that's worth playing. Feel free to let me know your thoughts, and just as a warning, I'm gonna put some bloopers at the end, and there's one right from one of my Twitch streams that has a slight spoiler. I'll go ahead and put that at the very end so that you don't have to press the stop button right now. But yes, I hope you guys all have a great night or day wherever you are, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye. I found that to be one of the more refreshing. Haha, that's the word I was looking for. Oh, that was good. For once, this video is going really smooth. I look a little orange, but I think that's my makeup. I chose a different foundation today, and I hope it doesn't look too orange. Oh my lord. I think that's fine. Kind of. Oh yeah, it's Cthulhu. If you want all the forbidden knowledge, but you don't really care if Edward suffers, that sounds horrible. In the end, it's a short, immersive... In the end, it's a short but immersive story. Free feel to have dyslexia in the comments below.
Is she smoking out of a cigarette holder and tapping the ashes into the food? This is not particularly sanitary. I guess they don't call him Edward Pierce for nothing.